Okay, so I've got my black locust debo with the hickory bark string on it. Now I need an arrow to go with it. So I've got a piece of the black locust that came right off that bow stave. Okay, so how I've been proceeding with this, you can see the section that's already round. Initially I used the antler wedge just to drive pieces off to get it roughly to shape. So that's what we're gonna do right down here. Here's where I've chopped in using the small hand axe chopper like this. I've chopped into it. Now we're gonna split into part of that where we've chopped. Here I'm just running the split down. I'm taking off all that sapwood. Trying to control where it goes. And it's okay that this piece isn't perfectly straight starting out. It's not the end of the world. What we're gonna do is split all that excess off of there, and this is actually how this piece came off the stave to start with. Was using an antler like this to split off the excess. So the finished diameter we're going for, I'm not too worried about the spine because I can always shave it down. I'm just splitting off the sapwood right now. You can see me going right down it, splitting that sapwood out. I don't want that in the finished arrow. It'll just be in the way. It's a nice thing about black locust is that it really splits super clean, even though we'd be better off if we had a log underneath us. But there we go. That's how much we took off. You know, just that fast. Just using controlled splitting. There's all the sapwood, most of it separated. I'm going to do that just a little bit more to keep roughing it into shape. Just following the grain. Not trying to get too crazy with it. A good rule of thumb is from what you're splitting away from what you're keeping, try not to take more than like a third of the material out. So then right in here, it's still pretty heavy. So I'm going to take some of that. I'm going to try to come right in like this. I'm putting my knee on it. I'm trying to drive that antler wedge into it. There we go. Didn't take as much as I wanted to, but I'm knocking the corner off. See? So I'll come back in on this side. That took a lot of that heavy area out. I can still do it right in here. See, that's all I'm doing. Split it, pull it away. So we're getting rounder-ish. I'm going to take that corner off. This would be a lot easier with a piece of like green hickory. This is seasoned black locust. Let's go right in here. We're going to try to take that heavy spot out. Maybe. Maybe not. There we go. So there I'm just working down it with the hand axe, and when I get a hard ridge like this, I'm coming back in with the antler chisel and a hammer, just a stone. Using it to kind of, if I can get under it, to kind of drive that off there. Just taking my time. I'm using that nice and slow, just to take the bulk of the scrape work out of it. And it doesn't have to be perfectly round at this stage, because I'm still going to scrape it and sand it. I'm just trying to get something arrow-esque looking at the moment. And I probably want it, my draw is about 26. I'd like to have it about 30 inches long, the arrow itself. So from here to there, I'm pretty good. I just need to keep working it down. Takes a lot of calories, that's for sure. That's what we've dowed so far. So we're hitting it in and down. Like that. And it's definitely going to take some time. There's no doubt about it. So, I'm getting somewhat close to the end. That's where I started. And that's where I'm at. I've got that much left. I've probably been at it for about 30 minutes or so. There's more of that sapwood. Okay, now we've got it all, not that side, from here down. We use the hand axe to roughly dowel it. It's got some flat spots, it's got some imperfections. Next, we're going to use this hard edge here, and we're going to draw and I'm rotating it and rolling it around and keeping downward pressure with my finger. It's starting to smooth out. So now we're just using that hard edge right there to plane it down, to plane out all the roughness. From the hand axe. The nice part about leaving your ends long like this, like having this be waste, is that I can push this end into my chest or into my knee and continue to work the piece. Just looking for ridges, and I'm sanding out, or I'm planing out the ridges. Right there's one. I'm just taking my time, working down it. So I finished planing it on this large stone that I had been using. I started out with this kind of rounded hard edge, and then I switched to right there. See how it's just kind of a straight edge? I was using that exactly like a plane to take out all the ridges and high spots that were in that arrow shaft. Now, right down here is going to be my nock end. That's my extra. And up here is going to be my point. And that's the extra on my point end. So I'm going to cut it to length using just really it's just a biface and a split stick. I'm going to hold it up against my leg like so. It's got a weird little kink in it. I'm going to try to cut right on the high side of that. So I'm going to cut, and I'm moving the blade back and forth a little bit like this so that I can get deeper and deeper into that cut that I make so that it doesn't stall out and I'm just rubbing the sides of the tool. Back, forth, back. And I'm also slowly rotating the shaft around and using my thumb on the back to keep this straight. I'm using my thumb almost as a guide right here on the back to keep this cutting straight. Okay, that's enough there. Oh, not quite. Some hard stuff. Now that that's cut off, now I'm gonna sand it down. Like that. Now we'll cut the other side, which is the nock side right there. Okay, now we're gonna start our nock. We're gonna try to start as centered as possible. I'm looking at the grain. I want to go across the grain line. So the grain is running this way. I want to cut my nock in this way. So across those grain lines. That's going to offer the strongest nock. I'm going to try to stay as centered as possible. There, I'm just starting the groove. I'm kind of off to this side. I can correct that by the angle of my tool. So I'm angling back in towards the heavy side. So to fit the style of bowstrings that I use, traditional bowstrings, this nock is going to have to be pretty good size. I don't mean in depth, I mean in width to accommodate for that heavy of a string. I'll show you what I mean. Here's that hickory bark bowstring. See how wide that's going to need to be. To get in there. Pretty wide. Using the tool like this, just in a pull, like a pull saw. try to even that and widen it out. This is the exact same way you'd cut in for your arrowhead. Oop, oop, oop. Okay, that's a pretty good place to start. This is a chunk of the crack top polypore mushroom that I was talking about that grows on the side of the black locust. What I'm doing is cutting into that some, like so. I'm going to use this to help out in my fire making. What the knife takes off, almost like sawdust. See, all that is going to go on my fireboard, is going to go under my notch. I'm going to use that piece I just snapped off as a coal extender. I'm going to use this actual piece of mushroom as my fireboard for the friction fire. Right here's my coal catch. That's what I'm going to use to catch the coal that comes off the bottom. It's pretty neat that see that? I'm going to pack that dust in the notch of the fireboard and use it like a coal extender in this also, and that will help me have a better chance once I put that into the tinder nest to have it keep going, keep smoldering inside the tinder nest. So next I'm going to make a hole on this shorter side, probably like right in here. I'm going to make a hole for the spindle. This is a cattail spindle. Okay, there we got some more of the dust. So just using the tip of the stone knife, I got a hole for the cattail spindle. I'm going to save all that dust again. And put it on my fireboard. Now I'm going to cut the V notch for the ember to drop down into. What's nice about working with this is it's so easy to work with stone tools. I mean, you burn through it pretty fast because it's not as dense as like cottonwood or willow or something else like that that you might use for a board. But it's very convenient to grab, it's very easy to gather, and it's very, very easy to work. And there's like almost no waste. See all that I took off, all that's going to go right back on the board. See how easy that is to carve into? Okay, All this dust that got generated is going to go back onto my coal catch. So I'm just using this old burnt piece of wood as a coal catch. And all that super fine dust will catch and spread very easily, and this helps me when it's as humid out as it is right now. And these bigger chunks, those will catch and smolder. That just buys me more time when I'm making the fire. Okay, so I'm trying to keep stuff up off the ground. There I've got a section of log. I have to go this way. I'll move you down so you can see what's happening here. So there's the polypore mushroom. There's where I've packed the dust from the notch that I made up into where we're actually going to make the fire. Okay. So now we're just going to use the cattail spindle. I had to clean up the end of it just a little bit. Like that. Okay, normally I'd use a bigger piece for the board. We're just using at the moment what we have. Both this board and this cattail spindle are very soft. I'm already starting to get some smoke. There, we're building. Okay, we're already almost there. Because I can tell, because the dust is starting to turn black. But it's very humid out. Okay, you can see that we've got a coal there starting to glow. So now the pressure's kind of off, as I can let that smolder for a second. I don't have to be in a big rush because I have the benefit of this as a coal extender. Okay, now this is the underbark from the black locust. There we got our coal going pretty good. So we're going to make sure that this is fibrous enough, and I've got another piece of that polypore in there. So I'm going to bring in some more of this, of the underbark. It's not shredded, it's fine. I just don't want to burn my hands up. And the nice thing about these coal extenders, when it's this hot out, man, they really, when it's this humid, they really help things. So we're going to transfer that. Okay. Okay, so while we got the fire going and our pine pitch glue is heating up, let's keep working on this arrow. This is the black locust split arrow that we worked on. So after I planed it down, now I've just been using this flake tool that's got the hard edge. And we're just going like this. See how that just works like a plane? I do that to clean up everything and even it down. Ouch. Glue's getting hot. And even it down and get it down to the diameter I want, which is when I shot, you know, more traditional shafts, I shot an 11/32 shaft. We're not really going to spine this, but we're just going for, you know, approximate diameter. So that's looking pretty good. There's a dogwood arrow I have in comparison side by side. So I've shaved it down. Now I left the end heavy like a cut-in blunt, but I started getting a split back here. See that? So what we're gonna do is use a little bit of heat to straighten this. You can see it's got a little bit of crook down in here. I'm just gonna heat it up right over the coals. Okay, and where I see that bend in the shaft, right in there. So it's a little bit hot on my hands, but it's not terrible. I'm gonna bend it straight. That's a lot better. It's really not too bad just being a split shaft. It's relatively straight already. There, I've got a little bitty kink in it. But really, that's pretty good. So now, I'm gonna measure this approximately to my draw. So I'm gonna put it in my chest and stick my fingers out. So the tips of my fingers like that, with the arrow on my sternum. And I could have left this full length and could have left this knob that I carved in on, and I do like that. And I reduced the nock side, like tapered the nock side down just with that little plane tool. But I'm gonna cut that off and straighten it. I'm gonna rough sand it inside of this groove, just knocking out some of my planer marks. Okay, so there's the front side of the arrow. We're going to take that and clean it up on the abrasive stone. Being careful not to extend that split. Okay, that's pretty good. So now I'm going to use that stone like this. I've got it held between my legs. I'm going to use that stone to taper the front of this down for putting my point in. I'm trying to make sure we're going all the way around and keeping it straight as possible. Keeping an eye on the fire, making sure everything's good. This transition is important. I've got to leave enough there for strength, but it's also got to be able to penetrate. I'm coming up on the front end. I'm going to reinforce behind that split with sinew. I just chewed the sinew in my mouth. I'm pulling that as tight as I can get it. Pulling it. Like so. And I'll bring it back onto itself. Like that. And a lot of people don't, but for the sake of unraveling, until I cover it in hide glue, I like to throw an overhand, just where I wrap it around and pull it back under itself. Creates a little bit of bump, but when the sinew dries down, you really don't see it that much. Okay, I'm just gonna cut off the excess. So right there, I'm gonna come in right on the end of it and utilize where that split's at and try to keep it centered. Okay, so there's our notch for our point. And the sinew tied behind it, we're going to use this garfish scale to make a point. How I'm going to do that is just grind this off down here and grind the base flat. You got like a So there we go. That's the base ground down. Now I'm going to work on refining the point and these edges just a little bit. It doesn't need a ton. See where that's just kind of serrated E? I'm just knocking that down. Just to where we're going to get less resistance going in. There's the side that was kind of bad. Now we're on to the side that wasn't as bad. And if it's not perfectly triangle shaped, I'm trying to keep it triangular. Like, I don't want these sides to flare way out. Basically want it to go straight in. So now we've got a pretty decent fit down in there. We're gonna get some of this pine pitch. And we're gonna seat the point with the pitch. Like so. And then I'm going to bring it down. Stuff is the stickiest stuff known to man. I'm trying to make sure we're straight in there. And that we're seated down, and that transition between the shaft and the point is smoothed out. It's okay to get some of the pine pitch on that sinew. All it's going to do is help waterproof it. So we're looking pretty good there. So I'm going to make this nock just a little bit deeper. Not a lot. I'm going to widen it out using this. Could be a little stone knife or a big arrowhead. Something about like that. So next we'll sinew reinforce that and fletch it. All three feathers pinched on in position, and I'm wrapping the front of the vanes where I strip a little bit of the feather away for a place to bind it down. And after I have a few wraps, I just try to make sure that everything's in position. Bind it down. Here, that tab's really, really long. That one. I'll just cut it off there. Ow. Ow. My hand's real sticky from the pine pitch. This is just the down dirty quick footnotes version. There's the feather wrapped down, tied down in place. Now we're coming back and reinforcing the nock. I like to wrap right up to where the sinew is actually right at the bottom of the nock. I think that helps it prevent it from splitting. Well, let's take a shot at our makeshift squirrel just for fun. That is deadly. Ooh, hit right on the top of it. Point is still pitched in there just fine. Right under it that time. Right into the ground. Still no point problems. Still good. Ooh, hit right over it, and that hit the ground hard that time. That pine pitch is awesome. That's not even loose. Got it that time. Oh yeah. So what's cool about that is, I mean, it's not the cleanest transition, but for a small game arrow and a small game point, I took probably 20 shots. That's all the damage I got, just barely that little bit on the tip. It's just about this point being sharp. The pitch is not loose at all. The bindings, even though we shot into that wet squash cucumber, it's still pretty good. The shaft got wet, feathers got a little beat up. That's okay, we'll just let it all dry. But if this gets beat up, what's cool is this is not bound in, it's just pitch glued in to a notch at the end, and then it's wrapped behind it. If this gets tore up real bad, what I can do is just replace it with another garfish scale point like that. I mean, it's almost identical, or a small triangular bone point, or a small triangular stone point, depending on what I'm going for. But yeah, the black locust arrow turned out great, shoots great. Can't wait to start hunting with it. I think it's going to be great. It changes things up from my typical bamboo or dogwood arrows. And I'm going to show the dogwood arrow making here pretty soon in the next couple of videos. So thanks for watching.